Oh no, what happened? Hello everyone, my name is Reno. Welcome back to the Olfactory Library. This is my video series here on YouTube where I share to everyone my love for fragrances. If you're new here, thank you so much for spending time with me today, but if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for tuning back in. Now, if you haven't yet, please do consider subscribing to this channel if you want to see more contents like this in the future. But don't stop there. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified if I do upload more contents like this in the future. Now for today's video, this is actually inspired by your response to the last two videos that I have uploaded, which focuses on one house each. The other one is from Joe Malone and the other one is a focus on the portraits collection from the house of Animalique. And if we're being honest here, I was not going to make this video yet for one reason, because next month in December I will be going home to the Philippines, which means I will be reunited with all the perfumes that I was not able to bring here when I moved here earlier this year in Australia, which means that I will also be reunited with the bottles of BYREDO perfumes that I have there, just to make sure that the perfumes in my top 10 are exactly what I feel and what I gravitate towards, and something that I am confident in recommending to you guys. But thinking about it, when I was packing my stuff and my perfumes when I moved here, the one rule that I needed to impose into myself was that make sure that the perfume that I will be bringing here are the perfumes that I would gravitate towards, the ones that I actually, reach for a lot and make use of, because it would be such, a waste of space, because I was already maxing out my luggage allowance when I moved here, which means that I can confidently recommend to you guys the bottles that I have here with me right now. I have exactly 10 bottles, but we'll be talking about some of the stuff that have happened. Also, some of the perfumes that I was able to test out, try out, and also a little bit of review for their latest release, which is called Animalique. So let's hop right into it. First of all, I want to talk about the two perfumes, their recent releases. First one, which is Animalique. Now, this perfume, I quite like it. Although with the name Animalique, I did not get what I was expecting, because I thought it was going to be punchy, it's going to be intense, it's going to be, animalic. Actually, it turned out to be a lot more simplistic, thin and transparent, which is basically, the transparent part is basically BYREDO's TNA, but it was not as intense as I had hoped. Well, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of animalic perfumes, but objectively speaking, the perfume is good. It feels more of like your skin, but better, but not in the typical floral kind of way, which is what I like about this perfume. It's focused on this airy, transparent, watery violet, and there's a lot of the leather in there. It does feel like, a true leather, but it is thin and transparent. I can definitely say that it's a perfume that really belongs in a category of perfumes, which is clean aesthetic perfumes. Putting that perfume on that list would be a very surprising left take on that category, because like I said, it has a lot of leather. It's not something that you would expect or typically expect in perfumes that you would consider clean, but it does feel clean. But for the price tag that it comes with, it's very pricey, and for what you would be getting, I don't know, maybe it's not worth it for a lot of people. Surprisingly, the perfume that came out before this one, which is called Eyes Closed, actually it's a lot more intense than this one, which is called Animalique. I don't know, maybe I'm biased because I love the note of iris. Iris is one of my most favorite notes in perfumes, but this one really blew my mind because of this very beautiful carrot note that you would get intensely at the very beginning, which is layered with this beautiful creamy iris and this beautiful sprinkles of spices. It feels like and smells like being enveloped by, a carrot cake. This feels like a very delicious gourmand carrot cake, but the other notes, especially the iris and the spices and the woods in the background, kind of pulls it away from being totally gourmand. After a few hours, the carrot carrot kind of like settles and blends beautifully with the iris, which turns the perfume into kind of like reminiscent to what you would get probably with the Dior Homme line or the Gentleman by Givenchy line, but it still feels unique even though it kind of like reminds you of those perfumes because of the carrot note that is still, you know, very present along with the iris that is very punchy. I think it's full bottle worthy. I actually have my eyes on it right now. It's actually one of the perfumes that I have in my wish list and might be adding in my collection very soon. And if it was here, if I had a bottle with it with me right now, it would probably be easily in my top 3. Now let's go officially to my list. I have 2 perfumes that are honorable mentions that I really want to talk about to you guys. First one is a perfume called Inflorescence. Now this perfume, I don't have the bottle with me right now for the reasons that I have said earlier, but this is a very beautiful white floral perfume that is all about lily of the valley. It's very bright, it's very zesty, it's very joyful. I think, you know, in general, lily of the valley has that kind of effect, joyful and bright. But one of the things that I used to describe this perfume is that this is something that I see Grace Kelly would wear in her wedding day, because it does kind of has this vintage feel to it without completely smelling like an old person, you know? It just smells clean, elegant, and bright. And you have to love green perfumes because it does, you know, have a little bit of tinge of greenness in there. You have to love Lily of the Valley as well because this is like an overload of Lily of the Valley. The next honorable mention that I want to talk about is this perfume, Bullion. This is an honorable mention because this has been discontinued already. You can correct me if I'm wrong. As you can see from my bottle here, it still has the old label from BYREDO. You can see right here the difference between the 2 labels. This perfume is very beautiful. The star of this perfume is the plum note, but it is done in a sort of like fougere kind of way. It's very elegant, very gentlemanly, but in a different kind of way because I don't think I have smelled plum done in this way. It's very, very beautiful, but it's sad that this perfume has been discontinued. Now officially going to the top 10. First perfume that we are going to talk about is Blanche. This perfume has key notes of aldehydes, rose, pink pepper, peonies, and musk. What I love about this perfume is it's very clean. You have to love that soapy accord in perfumes for you to enjoy this perfume because that is very prominent. I think even though this is very floral, it doesn't smell like a feminine perfume at all. In fact, you know, a lot of male celebrities actually wear this perfume. Very clean, slightly powdery, very bright, but at the same time, just really a cozy perfume to wear, especially during summertime. You can't go wrong with this perfume. At the number 9 spot is a perfume called La Tulipe. This perfume has key notes of freesia, rhubarb, green notes, wood notes, and tulips. Objectively speaking, as a clean aesthetic perfume, I much prefer this one over Blanche. Now this is a very interesting perfume because typically if you would smell tulips, they almost has no smell at all, but you can detect that kind of like watery floral quality in there that is present in the bulbs of tulips, you know? It's so amazing how BYREDO was able to capture that kind of smell and amplify that using different notes to make this accord of smelling like the tulip, which is very, very interesting. I personally love the use of rhubarb in here, which is not very, you know, punchy and prominent in comparison to what you would typically get in a perfume such as Delina, which is a very prominent rhubarb note. Here, it's done to give you that stemmy green quality. I really love that whole idea of capturing the sort of elusive accord of a flower and put it in a perfume and focus composition around that. This is so beautiful. Unfortunately, this is not very long lasting at all. It gives me about 4 or 5 hours of wearing, but definitely one of my most favorite things to wear in the summertime as well, because that's really the thing about BYREDO perfumes, and which is very interesting to be honest. A lot of the people that I watch here on YouTube, when they first started making videos here on YouTube, they almost always start at the house of BYREDO, which is understandably so because the DNA of BYREDO is very easy to understand, very approachable. That is, if you would think about it, very friendly to new noses, especially when it comes to niche perfumes. It made me think of, you know, like me becoming one of the people that I look up to. But going back to this perfume, if you want a unique, clean, aesthetic perfume to add into your perfume collection, try La Tulipe. At the number 8 spot is a perfume called Black Saffron. This perfume has keynotes of saffron, juniper berries, leather, violet, and raspberry. A lot of people have compared this perfume to the very famous perfume from the house of Tom Ford in the private collection, which is Tuscan leather. But to me, I don't think this is entirely similar or something that you could call as a dupe, because it still pretty much do its own thing. It does have similarities, but it's still a perfume in its own. This is a beautiful fruity leather perfume that is slightly spicy, which is interesting because it's called Black Saffron. So you would expect a very intense saffron experience, the same way you would experience saffron from Baccarat Rouge or like Instant Crush, but you don't actually get that intensity in here. In fact, it's playing more of a supporting role to the leather and the fruitiness in here. This perfume also has this nutty quality to it, smelling like the note of almond that immediately reminds me of a perfume called Pegasus from the house of Parfums Animale, but they don't smell alike, just the note of almond that kind of like give me that image. But the most interesting part for me with this perfume is that although it smells of leather, it has this sort of like intensity to it, but because of the use of violet, which is typical BYREDO DNA, it kind of like carries a freshness to it, carries a lightness to it that makes this perfume honestly very versatile. This one I think is, you could pretty much get away with wearing this one every single day as a signature perfume, but you have to love leather and at the same time fruity leather for you to enjoy the experience that this perfume does. At the 7th spot is a perfume called Sundazed. This perfume has keynotes of mandarin orange, lemon, neroli, cotton candy, and musk. Now this one smells very much alike, you know, Parfums Animale's Oriana, which also features cotton candy and mandarin orange. It smells very, very similar. But if we are talking about feminine, masculine, unisex perfumes, in my opinion, this one I think a lot more unisex than Oriana. Personally, I love Oriana as well. I love to wear that perfume. And like what we always say in this channel, wear whatever you want to wear, because at the end of the day, these perfumes are just a liquid in a bottle. And Oriana or this one, I think anybody can wear this perfume. But this is one of the perfumes that I have featured in my summer perfumes for life, and for a reason, because this is very juicy. Even though it has this sweetness from the cotton candy, it's not juvenile, it's not overwhelming, it's not toothache, it's not sickeningly sweet. It really feels bright. It still has that easiness to it, probably even more chill and relaxed than Oriana in my opinion. But this one, I probably would reach more, and I guess have reached more a lot in the past over than Oriana. And I would say if you love Oriana, check this perfume out. I think you will love this as well. At the 6th spot is a perfume that is a cult classic. It is Bibliotheque. This perfume has keynotes of plum, peach, leather, patchouli, and musk. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this perfume first came out as a candle to kind of like replicate the experience of being in an old library. And I think because a lot of fans love it so much, they wanted it to come in a perfume form, and so BYREDO gave in and gave the fans what they wanted, and now it has come in a perfume version. I love books, even though I don't read massively, I really love being surrounded by books. I don't know, maybe because I just don't have a lot of attention. I have a very short attention span. That's why I don't really read a lot. But I do love, you know, reading and being surrounded by books. And every time I spray this perfume, this transports me to a time and a place or a scene in a movie. Specifically, if I'm remembering it correctly, there is a scene in Avatar: The Last Airbender where they went into this submerged library under the sand. You know, that whole idea of being surrounded by this massive old books that is leather bound. It really gives you all that experience. It has the dryness, the leather, the smell of the old pages, the smell of the, you know, decaying wood. But I think the woody backbone of this perfume made it very wearable, especially the note of patchouli. This smells like very polished, something that you could wear in formal occasions, in red carpet occasions, in black tie events. It has a kind of finesse, it has a kind of elegance. In general, this perfume is very intense. Probably one of the rare ones in the house of BYREDO, because honestly, the house of BYREDO is not a brand that you would go to if you're looking for intense, massively projecting, room-filling perfumes. But this one is an exception. At the number 5 spot is Gypsy Water. This perfume has keynotes of juniper, citruses, pine needles, vanilla, and sandalwood. This perfume probably put the house of BYREDO on the map because this is their equivalent to Santal 33 to Le Labo. This was a cult classic. I think it still is a cult classic. Now this perfume, I think because of the hype, that's what made me buy this perfume. And this was actually my very first introduction to the house of BYREDO. And to be honest, when I first got this perfume, it was pretty early on in my fragrance collection. That was years and years before I started making videos here on YouTube. And to be honest, when I first got this perfume, I was almost disappointed because I couldn't understand what was going on with this perfume. It smells citrusy. It smells very green. I don't know, it just smells like the outdoors. And during that time, I was still wearing a lot of, you know, designer perfumes. I was wearing a lot of Bleu de Chanel. I have worn a lot of Creed Aventus and Creed Aventus colognes during my med school years. So that would probably be my first niche experience. But in comparison to Creed, this one I think is a lot more, you know, a lot more niche smelling. Creed has that, you know, mass appeal, designer-ish factor, if you could call it that. This was a blind buy. There was nowhere in the Philippines that you could ever try this. I guess over the years, I kept on coming back to this perfume because I wanted to understand. I guess the more I leaned into niche perfumery, especially the more complex niche perfumes, I started to appreciate this one, and I really love this one. This is a very unique citrusy perfume that has a touch of greenness, and that is again very unique because it's using the pine needles and the combination of this sort of like bitter juniper berries. Very beautiful. One of the perfumes that I will never get tired of. This is very invigorating, but at the same time it feels very cozy. At the number 4 spot, which may surprise you a lot if you have been watching my channel a lot, this is Rose of No Man's Land. This perfume has keynotes of roses, pink pepper, papyrus, and amber. If you've watched a lot of my perfumes in the past, especially when I talk about, you know, my favorite rose perfumes, this was in my top spot. You know, this was my very first rose perfume. This made me fall in love with rose perfumes and the note of roses in general, because prior to collecting perfumes and experiencing rose in perfumes, I've always hated the rose flower. I think because of the cliche-ness to it, if there is such a word, and I hated the smell of rose flowers. I don't know, for some reason I just didn't like it. But doing a lot of research around rose perfumes, I stumbled upon this one and I obviously bought my own bottle. I fell in love with the note of rose, and ever since then it has become my most favorite perfume note, if not one of my top 3 perfume notes. And this to me is very unique because one of the things that I usually say about this perfume, it smells like rose petals dipped in champagne. It has that watery, fizzy quality, very juicy. It has that dryness coming from the papyrus. It kind of smells like those popping bubbles of champagne. The whole DNA of this perfume is something that I have never really smelled in other perfumes, you know? But this, I think, when it comes to rose perfumes, when it comes to fresh rose perfumes, this, I think, stands on its own. Maybe it's just me because I haven't heard anyone have that experience with this perfume, but to me, it just smells like beautiful roses dipped in champagne. At the number 3 spot, we have a perfume called Mixed Emotions. This perfume has keynotes of blackcurrant, mate, tea, birch, and papyrus. This, I think, among all of the BYREDO perfumes here, is the latest addition to my collection. This was the perfume that knocked out Rose of No Man's Land out of the top 3 position just because I have a happy memory tied to this perfume. I traveled with this perfume when I went back to Vietnam, when we went to Da Nang and Hoi An. When I was packing for, you know, what perfumes to wear or to bring with me on my travel to Vietnam, I just thought it was going to be hot, you know, I'm going to be sweaty a lot, and I needed something very cozy, very refreshing, very invigorating, but at the same time has that lasting power. This is what I picked out from my collection, and ever since then, every single time that I wear this perfume or smell this perfume, it just takes me back to that time that I went to Vietnam and just puts me in a happy place. This opens with a very juicy blackcurrant note that is almost candied-like because it feels syrupy, but at the same time, that sweetness, that fruitiness is contrasted by this beautiful tea note that is in here, which is slightly smoky, and I think I could credit that to the note of mate, which is also sort of like a herbal concoction or tea. But the tea is, I think, the star of the show here. That's what you can get from the opening to the dry down of this perfume, and really, in my experience, suited the scorching heat in Vietnam when I was there. And that is why I have always associated this one to summer weather, to hotter weathers, and that's why this has become one of my favorite summer perfumes for life, and probably one of the very few perfumes in my whole collection in general, not just my collection of BYREDO perfumes, that I would definitely repurchase if I would run out of this perfume. At the number 2 spot is a perfume called Velvet Haze. This perfume has keynotes of coconut, patchouli, musk, and cashmeran. Now, the person that introduced me to this perfume, a fellow content creator that I am a big fan of, her name is Abby Bliss White. She was obsessed with this perfume, and the way she described this perfume and her experience with this perfume just convinced me to blind buy this perfume, which I would not recommend because just like Gypsy Water, the first time that I have experienced this one, it was almost a regret because I couldn't understand what was happening with this perfume. Even though it has the note of coconut, it was not the kind of coconut that I was expecting at all. I've had a couple of coconut perfumes before this one. I had vanilla vibes, I had Soleil Blanc, but they do not smell like this at all. But thankfully, I grew into this perfume and actually very obsessed with this perfume. Even though this smells very cozy, I think this smells clean. In my opinion, this smells clean. But I don't think the DNA is for everyone. I don't think it's the kind of perfume that is easy to approach and very understandable, even though I would consider this as a perfume that I could easily put in a category of clean aesthetics perfumes because it has roughness. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The coconut here smells like the smell of the coconut, the fruit, not the water, not the milk, but the fruit. It smells like a very fresh cashmere jacket or, you know, sweater that is fresh out of the laundry, because it does smell clean and it does smell cozy and enveloping. And the image that comes to my mind is a cozy winter morning that you're wrapped up in this beautiful soft cashmere sweater. The sky is gray on the outside. It is an acquired taste. You have to try this if you love musky, powdery, very enveloping and cozy perfumes. This in general, I think, is just a very unique perfume, and I need you to check this one out. It's not for everyone, but this I think is very much worth it. At the number 1 spot, I think you can already guess, it's Bal D'Afrique. This perfume has keynotes of citruses, African marigold, black currant, vetiver, and amber. Now this is weird because I don't have my bottle with me right now because my own bottle is left in a different house, but this perfume is another cult classic. A lot of people love this perfume, and for a reason, because it's very unique. This one, along with Gypsy Water, put the house of BYREDO in the map. It's bright, it's very solar, it's really perfect for the hotter weathers. It has this unique African marigold that blends so well with the citruses without, you know, being overly floral, but you can get that balmy solar quality in here because of that marigold. And this is beautifully contrasted by this soft vetiver in the background, which I think just overall perfectly creates the story of the inspiration of this perfume, which is the African art and African, I guess, lifestyle. I am obsessed with this perfume. It just makes me happy every single time I smell this one. I don't know, if you haven't smelled this one yet, especially if you love this perfume, you have to have this one in your collection. And that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching all this way. I know this has been a long video, but I hope you had fun watching this one. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making this one. Please don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video. It would definitely help me hugely with YouTube's algorithm. But as always, I hope wherever you are, you're staying safe, stay curious, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!